So there was a guy named Jesus, maybe. He was born in Bethlehem, maybe. He was raised in Nazareth, maybe.
It is not necessarily certain, nor even likely, that Jesus actually existed as a real live human being. He may have, but if he did, we have no way of knowing how much, if any, of the sayings attributed to him were actually spoken by him. It seems incredibly doubtful that if he did exist and was a Nazarene, that he would even be born in Bethlehem. You see, the way the Romans conducted their census would not have required that.
Oh, shut up. Look, if we wanted to be overly analytical, we could tear apart every story that humans tell. But that's not what we're here for.
Well, actually,
I said no. Look, we're not going to go over every historical inaccuracy in the bedrock of the faith. We're just going to tell the story, leaving out a lot, and then take a look at the history of the church itself. So there was a guy named Jesus. He was born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth. These are cities in Judea, which is what we now call Palestine or Israel. Guy grew up, around the age of 30, walked around with a bunch of his best friends, both male and female, and taught people stuff. He talked about loving everyone, no matter where they came from or what they believed. He also gave some pretty deep theology about resurrection, damnation, and even eschatology or the end times. Some people got real mad about it and decided, but surprise! Either 3 days or 2 days or 18 hours later, Jesus came back from the dead. He had been to hell to save a bunch of Old Testament peeps, then ascended into heaven. He came back for a minute to teach a bit more and let some people touch his scars. Then Jesus went back to heaven where he waits for something. There's a lot of disagreement. Generally, it involves judgment, resurrection, salvation, and damnation of some kind, usually preceded by some really hard times for his followers.
Basically, they fear the world doing to them what they have done to the world. Get out!
Initially, the church was considered a branch of Judaism with some different ideas and a weird fixation on this Jesus fella. But St. Paul made sure that changed, and quick. His outreach to non-Jewish residents of the Roman Empire led the faith to morph into a mostly Gentile religion that had Jewish roots, but didn't really identify with the Jewish people anymore. Unfortunately, in the Roman Empire, you couldn't just be a new religion. There was a certain amount of religious freedom, but rabble-rousing was just too gauche, so there were a few issues for the early Christians. In the early going, the faith was a bit more malleable without a central authority. You had some Gnostic books, some apocryphal books, and a whole lot of oral tradition. Preaching was the main mode of evangelism at the time, and much of the population in the empire was illiterate, so this was just good praxis. The faith spread out to many parts of the world. Of course, with popularity can often come power, and Christianity eventually did come to power in Upper Mesopotamia? In a kingdom ruled by Arabs? Yeah, the Romans were beaten to the punch by both the Arabs and the Africans, with Ethiopia declaring Christianity the state religion in 330 CE, and it taking the Romans another 50 years to get there. Once the Romans converted, though, it was time to get things straight.
Something I will never do.
So we had some councils, one of the most consequential being the Council of Nicaea, in order to make clear the doctrine of the Trinity.
Right. The Trinity.
So the Trinity is the doctrine of the triune God whose three parts, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, are all fully God, none of which are each other, are in no way subservient or dominant over one another, but are all a single God, not three separate gods. So Jesus was fully divine, but he was neither Father nor Holy Spirit. If you're confused, don't worry, so was everyone then and now. My best way of understanding it is to assume God exists in like 69 dimensions, so this isn't exactly how it works, but it's as close as he can get to explaining it to us. Okay, this is a quick primer and it's getting too long, so we're going to jump way ahead and go way Eurocentric because they had an outsized influence on how Christianity would come to dominate the world. Dang, Japhethites thinking they're the most important. Noah should have thrown you off the ark. After a few centuries of Christian dominance in Europe, the fall of the Eastern Roman Empire really gave the Bishop of Rome new political clout. This clout was eventually codified in making that particular bishop the prime bishop or Pontifex Maximus, or rather, Pope. Some in the East were not so keen on this idea. They also had a few other concerns. There was a quick little schism when we had Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox Christianity. But remember, there were other churches too scattered around the world. You have your Coptics and your Gnostics and your Arians and many more. Fast forward a few centuries in Europe and suddenly this dude shows up. Reformations for all! Except for you, Anabaptists. Now we have all kinds of churches. We've got our Lutherans, our Calvinists, our Methodists, our Anglicans, and on and on. There were also some later Christian churches that cropped up. Most notably, we have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Jehovah's Witness. These are both non-Trinitarian churches, leading some Christian leaders of other sects to disavow their connection to Christianity. But remember, the Arians were there at the very start. Moving into the modern day, we have the evangelical and charismatic movements that have strict theologies but are often characterized by the way the Spirit moves them. And to top it off, we also have the prosperity gospel, which is terrible. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you like this style of video, please comment down below and let us know. We think this was a good way to prepare for our next big video essay, a deep dive into Lutheranism. What should we deep dive into after that? Let us know in the comments down below. A special thank you to Laura Beth for her generous support of the channel. If you'd like to support us and get a shout out of your own, there's a link on the screen and in the description below to our tip jar.